Hi everyone, I'm Amy and I work with people and their homes. And today is the last in my video series of Men and Housework. And today we're going to be talking about how your working day affects your attitude towards housework and traditional gender roles within the home.
So one big difference in how we live is that I work full time and she doesn't. She's an artist, so most of her work's freelance. And when she's not working, she basically gets to watch a lot of TV. But it tends to mean that, I'm out at work during normal times. So I'm gone from like 9 in the morning till 6 in the evening. And during that time, she'll tend to have cooked herself breakfast, cooked herself lunch, and probably cooked herself dinner. And by the time I'm back, she's done all that and thought, I'll put all this away and clean the top. And then it's kind of done before I get home.
I think my unique circumstance has sort of been like within a very short span of like a few months. I've gone from like being at home all the time to not like having that, well, I say 9 to 5, it was more like 9 till 9 work. When I was working, and it was very much like there were bad and not so bad days. And I just did not really do any housework at all. Like I was just, the job took too much out of me, and with partner being furloughed, they're at home, and kid at nursery meant that they were at home and they could actually sort of take that on. But now I'm home, I very much like want to pitch in, although like there's only so many things I can do with a broken ankle.
Yeah, I'm a bit more aware of it now because, obviously I'm working from home at the moment. If she hasn't got any projects on at the time, so, if she does, she'll go and spend several hours at a studio or on the kitchen table across from me doing whatever she does. Then she'll get up and like do some cleaning in the kitchen. And I kind of have to resist the temptation of like feeling I should get up and help because I need to carry on with the work I'm doing. Like my manager won't appreciate it. Say, where were you? Meant to be in a meeting. Oh yeah, sorry, I was cleaning the.
I do a lot of shift work, so I work, from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. or from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I was able to get a lot of the housework done during the day when she was at work. And that would leave her, I guess, better able to just come home and relax and eat dinner, not have to worry about it.
It's kind of one of those ones when you look at how the jobs market in particular was in the 1970s, it was a lot harder for women to get into the workplace. You can kind of see how that split happens where you get the breadwinner and the homemaker because, well, partially salaries in those days were like minimum wage was meant to be enough to raise a family on. So you could afford to have just one of the parents, just one person in the household go to work and the other one not. And I can definitely see that if you're not the one who's at work all day, that actually keeping the home tidy and cooking is kind of a contribution to the household that I don't know, is it equal to being the one who brings home all the money? Obviously, it's not a fair system necessarily for people who don't want it.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of, you're both contributing, but it's like apples and oranges. It's very different.
It's very hard to kind of say. I guess if both partners in that relationship are happy with that split, it's fine.
I think the old way of looking at it, the stereotype, is in my head a bit, but it's not like strong enough to be like, yeah, that's how it's like. I'm going to be the person that does all the work, and Hannah's going to be the one that does all the housework because I'm out working. We both work. Sometimes I'm not working as much. Sometimes I'm working more. I do think that maybe women are more inclined to do housework, not necessarily because they're women, but it's because they're probably not told, but it's kind of like, girls have dolls and pushchairs and basically get told that you're going to be a mummy, and mummies do like have kitchens and they do cooking, but then all the blokes have like action men and car toys and trucks and play football and sports. It's kind of ingrained into you very early on.
I think the stereotypes certainly still exist. I can't say that I see it very often. If I do, then maybe it's an observation of me being outside in the world, and you just kind of clock it and be like, oh, that's a bit old school. But it's not just that it's old school as well. It's certainly this day and age, it's wrong. It shouldn't. Okay, this may be just my personal opinion from it, but you it's sad. You do still see it, or at least you still hear of it. But I think certainly in my circle of friends, no, it's 50. Beautifully, it's 50-50, and like the guys will be doing the washing up and drying ups, and the women will be doing the barbecue.
I guess I don't really agree with either, because I've known guys that really love cleaning, like it's something they can get into, and I've known women who I guess are just horrible at it, or I just can't keep up with housework. So I don't think there's any one gender that's better or worse at it. It's just kind of a lot of it goes into how you were raised and what responsibilities you had growing up, that led to how you are as an adult.
So the house I was brought up with, we didn't. I don't think I ever heard the phrase "that's women's work" or "that's men's work" growing up. Even strangely at school, even though I went to like an all-boys school where you'd expect that sort of language to be thrown around a little bit more, I will have seen it on TV, I guess. I watched The Simpsons, where it's kind of, I think they do show Marge as primarily the homemaker and Homer not really contributing. But at the same time, they definitely don't portray that as a positive thing.
Yeah.
Like the takeaway when they show it is Homer is lazy.
Yeah.
And takes for granted the people around him.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, it's more blurred for me, but there are definitely two halves. They just overlap a lot more, I think. Yeah, in the same way that there isn't really women's work or men's work, there kind of is at the same time. But whether that's because that's what people have said it is, and you're kind of going along with it, versus what do you actually think? And I feel like people don't necessarily ask that question of themselves. It's just like, well, I'm just going to do this. I think it's like blurring, but it's kind of still there.
Hopefully, in a very short space of time, in a couple of years, we won't even be having this conversation. It will be part of the history books of, oh, do you remember when we used to have this divide of men and women and not equality? And like, you see more and more men taking responsibilities with children. And living in Norway for 2 years and still very much part of my heart, like I still see that and I love it. I really do, because it just makes me feel like that's the way that it should be. You'll see the guys out with the pushchair going into a coffee shops with their other guy friends that have children strapped to them, and just seeing that it's beautiful. It really, really is beautiful, and that's how I kind of imagine it should be going. The direction, certainly here in the UK, should be going. We are going that way, but it's probably not in your face as much.
So if you don't have that, you're a woman, this is what women do, if you're not taught that from an early age, you're going to be far more in the center. And vice versa. I feel like women's work has lessened in what is defined as women's work, but I feel like the man side hasn't shifted. So instead of doing this, it's done this, if that makes sense.
Now we're in a position where women, it's quite standard for women to go to work full time and, contribute to the household in that way. But I feel like, and that's this part, but I think you're right that it's what's normal for men has stayed quite similar, but I think we're a bit late in catching up with men can do housework.
Yeah.
My first 2 years out living away from home, I lived in entirely like male households. Actually, that's not true. 7 men and one a trans woman who identified male when she moved in, and then after that I lived with two men I knew from my university course. So it's like a case of when you're living an entirely single sex, or apparently single sex I should really say, a household like that, the idea of splitting the work up by gender does not work.
Yeah,
Um,
it would never be done. But I think at uni often it doesn't get done. If your experience is the same as mine.
it's a bit. There is a bit of that. We did do a pretty good job of keeping on top of the dishes and the washing up and all that. We were good. It actually wasn't until I started living in mixed gender households that I ever started having problems. The one person I've had who I've really been annoyed about not keeping on top of their part of the household chores was against stereotype. A woman who had the tendency just to cook and leave pans with leftovers in to soak in the sink for months at a time. I mean, it's leave it to soak overnight, sure, but it's been there for 3 weeks and there's mold growing on it.
On a whole, I don't think within this household we really stick to that sort of like divide. We just do like everything. Like, we both do gardening, we both do hoovering, we both do that, but I still feel like there's an imbalance. But then it's like, well, I don't think it's a gender divide. I think we just do what we don't mind doing the least each.
Have you ever had people express sort of gender roles either towards you or towards Sonia and women in general that you've sort of disagreed with? So perhaps someone saying, I don't want to help out at home because I'm a man, that's women's work, or similarly somebody assuming that you're not good at housework because of your gender.
I think it depends on my relationship with them, but I am more likely to call someone out than just let things slide.
And how does that go when you do that? What's their response like?
I guess it depends on who it is. I work with mainly male coworkers, and especially being in the military, there's still the kind of macho mindset. So a lot of times the people aren't receptive to it. But I think as time goes on and as, you know, society as a whole progresses a little further and further, people are more open to those kinds of conversations. Some people it's like that's a natural thing, and other people, they were definitely raised with the mother did all the housework. And so I think to those people it can be a bit strange being exposed to different viewpoints.
I got caught on it the other side of it almost, when I got told it was at my mum's 60th birthday, and I'd been trying to like empty the bins. We couldn't find the general waste because of work. I'd had to come a day late, and said, does anyone know where the general waste bin is? And got chastised for sort of saying, this is what happens when you send a man to do a woman's work. And she'd kind of taken the mick out of me earlier when I just arrived. I'd been there a couple of hours trying to put stuff away in the kitchen with a similar thing. And the first time I kind of brushed it off as she was joking.
Yeah.
I kind of rolled my eyes at the joke and just tried to make it point that I didn't find that joke funny. The second time I tried to tell her, like, look, the joke wasn't funny the first time, it's not funny this time.
Yeah. Oh,
Do not make that joke, please. At which point she tried to explain to me that she wasn't joking. She meant it.
Oh.
And the conversation kind of deteriorated from there, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know which one of us handled it badly, but it didn't go well.
Well, I feel like you're absolutely in your rights to say, I'm capable of doing this. Thank you.
Yeah. And I did feel very very happy to find out there was no general waste. We were expected. It's like, that's why I couldn't find it. I was right.
What would your response be if somebody made that kind of comment about you? If you sort of said, oh, you know, I'll be out in a minute, I'm just doing the laundry, and someone said, what are you doing the laundry for? Like, how would you respond to that?
I'd certainly be responding. Instincts tell me I probably want to play a game, in terms of I want to test, not a game as such, but I want to test that person. And I'd ask, oh, what do you mean? I've got to do my laundry, like I've got to clean my clothes. I'd want to cut any kind of response to a question, oh, why do you think I should not be doing it? Cut it out, nip it in the bud then and there to show that I'm not having of it, because something like that, it would get my back up. You'd want to give that person an opportunity to clear it up, because you could get it wrong. It might have nothing to do with, oh, because your missus should be doing it. I wouldn't expect that from a lot of people that I'm speaking to on the phone anyway. Even just as a joke now, I think those kind of jokey things are kind of put to one side now. Maybe they prop up like once in a very, very blue moon. And you can kind of just let it slide because maybe it's one of your best mates and you've known it for so long and they don't actually mean it. But yeah, I think it just depends on who you're talking to or who's kind of saying that.
I don't know if you remember the old Mr. Muscle ads, which would have this utterly useless guy, and there was there were really sexist ads in the 1950s about like cars or credit cards or bits of gadgetry saying so simple even a woman can use it.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Muscle ads from the late 90s and early 2000s were exactly the same, but with cleaning products saying so simple even a man can use it. Like, it's meant to be doing it at men's expense, which I think is why they could get away with it in the 90s when they couldn't get away with the other sexist ads anymore. But it just reinforces the idea that, well, that's women's work.
Yeah. Sexism is sexism no matter which way round it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, it does tend to end up hitting both ways, no matter how you do it.
I know that you've got a little play kitchen for Toby and he's got his little play mops and stuff. What would your response be if you had a male friend say to you, oh, why are you letting him play kitchen and play cleaning? Isn't that women's work?
Initially, I'm not sure because I couldn't imagine, like, I'd probably just dismiss it on the fly and almost like just brush it off because I enjoy cooking. So why shouldn't my son learn how to cook? You know, it's kind of like a I don't get it. It just doesn't compute. So I'd probably just brush it off or let it pass. I probably wouldn't call it out. It'd be different to whether like it was a stranger saying that like men can't do washing up, or like he's less or more of something because that's women's work. Like I'd be like, really? Like, yeah, I'd probably be more likely to call it out if I didn't know the person, because it's more like, well, I don't know you. Why? It's more of an attack if you don't know the person. But if it's you know the person and they just say it, I'd probably just brush it off and just be like, I probably wouldn't try and justify it, I think would be the best thing to say. Like, it would just be because he has, or because he does, or because he likes it.
Thank you so much to all the guys who took part in today's video. Make sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook for more videos coming up. Bye!